spies, saboteurs, assassins. Everything I did for the rebellion.
This is Rebel Force Radio's ANDOR
After Show.
I've been in this fight since I was 6 years old.
Oh boy, that was some announcement. You know, I think that you could have actually named this episode Revenge of the Empire. Man, did they bring the hammer down on the galaxy this week. And, you know, I know that there are some people out there that are going to say, well, there was no action in this episode, and I want action. But this show is so well written, and the dialogue is so compelling. And it fills in all of these gaps in such a really great way, gaps of knowledge, of information, that's just doing it for me, that I don't miss the action, to be honest with you. I'm okay having these conversations and taking some time and not just learning about the new characters, but think of all the things that we learned about Mon Mothma, picked up on her just this week alone. So I just... Palpatine name drops. There's just so many great things to talk about this week on the Andor After Show. Thank you all so much for being with us. Appreciate it. As always, you can make sure that you are here live when you follow us on our social media channels on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. Also, subscribe to Rebel Force Radio on YouTube. You'll get a notification if you hit that notification bell. So you'll always know when the action is going to begin here on RFR Live. And I know one guy who's ready for all of the RFR action. That is, of course, my good friend and yours from Chicago, Jimmy Mack.
Hey, Jason. Hey, Star Wars fans. Cheers to you all. Everyone, join me as I imbibe on some of Perrin's Embassy Punch. This is legit. This is legit stuff.
It looks like mouthwash. It's so bright blue.
I get it from the same place Lucasfilm gets it from.
Oh,
hello. That's right.
Windex.
Okay. So, hey, bottoms up. Cheers, baby.
Yeah, bottoms up. Mine's a little bit of an amber color, but that's, it's pretty par for the course for me. But, Jim, this episode, man, I'm very, very curious to hear your take because, you've certainly have played it. I would say, I'd say very fair, but down the middle. I mean, you admit when there's stuff that you do like and stuff that you don't like on this show. So you're certainly not sycophantic about it by any chance. But when the action, got pretty intense last week, it seemed like you were all in. This week was light on the action, but big on the repercussions of the action. Yeah. So how did you feel about the sort of the change in the pacing and the tone this week?
Mm-hmm. Oh, I really like this episode. Let's just get that out of the way. I liked it because it truly showed imperial oppression on the everyman throughout the galaxy. And that's what the show has been promising. That's what a lot of people have been praising the show for revealing. But I don't think the show has really shown it to us until we saw this episode in particular. And they bring it and they bring it up. Who would have thought it would have taken 7 episodes before we finally saw stormtroopers? But I was happy to see them. And I love the flashbacks to the Clone Wars era.
Oh, yeah.
Troopers. That was great, man. And in revealing information about how Andor's adoptive father, Clem, perished.
Oh, tragic.
It was at the hands of the Empire.
Yeah. I mean, we don't have... well, we think we know. We don't actually see the act, but it looks as though the troopers are about to kill him in sort of a misunderstanding. He's actually trying to keep the people of Ferric safe by saying, hey, don't ruffle any feathers. Let them come and wave their flag and they'll be on their way. Yeah. And all of a sudden, he's the guy standing with his you-know-what in his hands.
Being in the wrong place. Yeah. The wrong place at the wrong time.
Yeah.
And, really sad to see then Kid Cassian walk by, him hanging I mean, we assume that was him hanging. I don't know. Marva certainly said that they hung him in that town square.
Yeah.
And then we see Kid Cassian walking by, some feet hanging up in the air right before he grabs a club and rushes at 4 or 5 clone troopers, which I thought was pretty cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, so he has been fighting this fight since he was 6 years old, no doubt about it. And there was just so much Star Wars-y things going on here on both a visual scale and watching the development of the Empire as it furthers its grip on the galaxy. We got to see the Empire evolve into the thing that eventually constructs a planet-destroying weapon and puts it to use. Now, of course, those plans were always in place going back to Attack of the Clones. We know this. But, there's a buildup leading up to the Death Star becoming operational. And because they use it so casually, when we see Krennic and Tarkin use it in Rogue One, it's like a real casual test, Yeah, we'll just blow up this city. Krennic's like, let's blow the whole planet up. Let's just do it. No.
Tarkin's he's like, just hold on. I'm in charge now. We'll be blowing up a city and you'll like it. Okay.
But just seeing how these guys get there to the point where they need a Death Star. And and then the visual stuff in this episode was great. We had stormtroopers, shore troopers, Star Destroyer, mouse droid, alien species. Puts us in that environment that I think is essential to the viewing experience of any Star Wars.
And if you had the subtitles on, the subtitles add another dimension to this. And I was glad I had them on because right out of the gate, you find out that the mustachioed man is Yularen. There he is. Jimmy Max got the action figure. He's ready.
He's pointing right at you, Swank.
His face was quite long enough to be Ilarian, but I guess we'll just have to deal with it. Casting is pretty bad
him. Imperial era.
Sort of took me out of it.
Well, here he is again. This is how we saw him in Clone Wars.
Yeah.
And I didn't realize it was Yularen the first time I watched the episode.
They never mention his name. I don't even think.
Right.
He's on IMDb. It's actor Malcolm Sinclair, and but I don't know if it's even in the credits. I don't watch the credits generally.
I didn't notice it in the credits either, but when I watched it the second time with the closed captioning on, it does identify him as Yularen, and that's cool because I thought it was just he says I spoke to the Emperor recently, and I'm like, wait a second.
He's got a line to the Emperor, Yularen?
Yeah. Well, now that doesn't surprise me so much.
Boy.
Because, I don't know. It's just because he was around in the Clone Wars.
Sure. But I didn't fancy him. Now, he was Anakin's what would be the part?
Commanding officer.
Yeah, the commanding officer on his ship.
Well,
so
yeah, I guess. Yeah.
But we know that connection between Anakin and Vader is likely not there. So it's not as though it's not like, well, you served me when I was Anakin Skywalker, now serve me as Vader. In fact, if anything, I would think that relationship they had, the relationship that he had with Anakin Skywalker, would have been more of a liability. I'm interrupting Jimmy playing with his toys. It's like Spaceballs here.
Hey, it'll be time to play with your toys after the podcast is
all right. We got a collector here. Tom Baker asks. He says, "Chut chut, is that from the Imperial briefing room set, Jimmy?"
Yeah,
I believe.
I think that was the only time that character was released. The one with him in the white.
Right.
In the white.
Yeah, which is a great set.
I think that's the only time he was ever released.
I think that briefing room set. You can get all the guys. Some of them are they're pre-posed a little funky. But hey, before we get too deep into the discussion, do want to give you the tale of the tape here. This is Andor. We're talking about season 1, obviously, episode 7. Original air date October 19th, 2022. Directed by Benjamin Caron and written by Stephen Schiff. So there you go. I didn't get the runtime, but it seemed like about average for this series.
Steven was the original showrunner for Andor.
Oh, before Gilroy came
Before
in.
Gilroy came on board.
Yeah.
So this may have contained elements of some of the scripts that they threw at Gilroy early in the process to see what he thought of it before he then wrote his Andor, quote, manifesto and sent it off to Kathy Kennedy. But at first it was Stephen Schiff, and he was developing a story that was like a Butch and Sundance kind of thing is how Gilroy described it. So we might see elements of that in this. Well, I guess we saw possibly elements of that. I mean, where would this have been going though? So, just to jump straight ahead to the end, Cassian gets sentenced to 6 years in prison.
Mm-hmm.
So obviously there's going to be a jailbreak here somewhere. So I think that might have been also part of the Stephen Schiff thing. But I believe Luthen will be the one orchestrating the jailbreak because Cassian is a loose end. So
so that
they're going to want to silence him.
Big surprise. I mean, we see Luthen's assistant going to Vel and basically putting a hit on Cassian.
Yeah, well, that's what you got out of that was just
Well, she says, you want me to kill him? She doesn't say, no, we just want you to break him out of jail, or we want you to follow him, or when he's not in jail at that point, but yeah, I think it's clearly a hit.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, Clea, there's more to her, Luthen's assistant, than meets the eye. She might even be Luthen's superior in this. Who knows how it's all going to end up playing out, but it sure looks like Luthen is the man in charge of what's going on this end of the early days of the rebellion. His main concern is getting the funds.
Yes. Yeah.
And, up until this episode, I thought Mon Mothma was aware of that, and she made it clear that she was not part of that plan. So,
well, there's a lot of questions here. The one that I'm walking away with is it seems clear that Bix is not the one that has been feeding information about Cassian to Luthen. It's someone else. Right. My money's on Marva. I still believe there's more to her than meets the eye. Mm-hmm. But who knows? She may be exactly what she seems. Just, a simple woman, former scavenger, always been kind of living on the edge to some degree, has an axe to grind with the Empire. Who doesn't? Get in line. They all do. A lot of people on the chat bringing up the sister connection. Could Clea be Cassian's sister? I suppose it's possible. Swinging back to Marva, Marva tells Cassian a sort of, which might be sort of her last words to him. Stop looking for your sister. No one survived. And stop blaming yourself for what happened there. So,
well, listen, they're not dangling this sister thing out there for her to be dead. That's how the whole series opened. Cassian Andor's out searching for his sister. She's still alive. I don't care what Marva says. We know the sister's out there somewhere. Is it Clea? Maybe. Some people are saying it's Deidre. Some people are saying it's Cinta. Maybe it's
they
Val.
were flirting with each other. I guess that would be in the great Star Wars tradition, though. Brother and sister flirting with each other a little bit. It makes sense that, Clea could make sense. Is she the one that's been keeping an eye on Cassian? Mm-hmm. And she's the one feeding the information to Luthen. But yeah, there's much more to her. She's not just an assistant. She's almost like an equal to Luthen.
Mon says only 3 people in the galaxy knew about what these guys were up to. And that's Mon, Clea, and Luthen. Mm-hmm. So Marva being a loose end, I don't know about that. But I think that she's the odds-on favorite. Who's been feeding Luthen the information? Who would know?
Well, I mean, when you say that, when you say there's only 3, when Mon is referring to the 3, I don't know that she's necessarily saying that the only 3 people would know that there's a rebellion, period. I think only 3 people know, perhaps, that all of these disparate groups are not as disparate as they appear, that they all have been intricately networked, even though they may not know that they have been networked. But it is a great question. What exactly is Mon referring to as the secret that only 3 know?
I think it's pretty straightforward. They're trying to raise funds for the rebellion.
Right, but that doesn't...
She doesn't even say that. She doesn't say that to her friend, her childhood friend.
Matsween is saying that he's saying that only 3 know that Mon is supporting the rebellion. That's
Mon,
probably what it is.
Luthen, and Clea.
And Clea. Yeah.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
That's pretty easy. But yeah, so Tay Coma, he's gonna become
Tay.
Tay.
Tay. I didn't know which one I like better, Tay or Kaif. We'll get to Kaif.
Keef.
We'll get to Kaif later.
It's not Kaif, it was Keef. Keef. Keef.
Keef.
Oh, I see. You're saying it with a little flair. Okay,
yeah. I'm just getting a little, little flair there. But I like that Tay thinks that he's too rebel for Mon Mothma. I love that. It's like, I don't know if you can handle my politics, lady.
Yeah.
Little lady.
Yeah. He's been watching the cable news networks.
Yeah.
But yeah. So yeah, he has no idea what he's getting himself involved in.
No, it sounds like she wants to get him to be a front man of some sort of foundation, some charity that is actually going to be laundering money to the rebellion.
Yes. He will be delivering the funds to her, probably in suitcases. You know, they're going to be working on, they can't leave a paper trail. So these have to be cash withdrawals.
Yeah.
And he's going to be the one shipping the money or carrying the money. He's the money man. And he's coming in from Chandrilla, which is her home planet. And surprised to hear Mon is aligned with the Separatists. That's kind of a revelation. At least it is to me. I never knew Mon was aligned with the Separatists, but she seems to be a sympathizer for the Separatists. She seems to work on behalf of the Separatists.
But was she working with the Separatists or supporting the Separatists during the Clone Wars, or is she now supporting the Separatist systems that are not in rebellion against the Republic, but now the Empire?
Yeah. I had considered that. Right. These are the new Separatists.
Right.
The Imperial era Separatists. But they haven't, the Separatists of the Clone Wars era, they formed their own government and they went to war with the Republic.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how deep we are into that with this new wave of separatists, but they have separatist coalition meetings, which Imperial spies then infiltrate.
Yes, right.
Spies sent by the Grand Vizier, who in the expanded universe was a guy named Sate Pestage. And I had some pestage on some egg noodles the other night. It was
it's very tasty. It's very good.
Yeah.
Very good.
But Sate. So I don't know if he's going to be showing up in this, but that would be a nice plant from the old EU. And even he was supposed to be a character in Return of the Jedi, but he got edited out somewhere along the line. Sate Pestage. Yeah.
There was so much in terms of the dialogue and the interplay between the characters. We started out with Cyril and his ma. Ma! Why are you always so hard on me, ma?
I couldn't believe it. This episode starts off with another scene of him eating breakfast in the breakfast nook. I'm like, we're going back there?
Yeah, already?
Oh, my God.
Oh, my God. Budgets. But
yikes. But
yeah,
it's
so
fine.
Cyril is eating the cereal again, and I didn't know that the higher the collar meant the more desperate you are for others' approval.
Yeah,
they had it tailored so it would be all. He'd be all ready for his job.
Brown suit, high collar.
Yeah, right.
Says, I don't believe in myself, and I am desperate for approval.
I believe in the brown.
I'm Cyril.
Not a fan of the brown suit. The tribute tax, and we see the Empire and the ISB as Yularen reveals that Palpatine personally asked him to lead the ISB against all of these, to really tamp down on any inkling of rebellion. The tribute tax, which sounds very much like our own revolution here in the States with Great Britain, where they were also trying to tax us for damages tax the colonies that were for damages done. He talked about the PORD, the Public Order Resistance Directive. And this is what screws Cassian at the end. This is where any criminal act, the sentences, so this includes people that are incarcerated currently, people that are about to be incarcerated, that their sentences are going to go up way, way high. We see at the end what normally would have been a 6-month sentence is a 6-year sentence.
Zero tolerance. And it's so interesting, how it all came around full circle to bite him in the ass. So he did not get away with the Aldhani heist.
No.
Completely unscathed.
No, that's the irony of all of this.
Yeah.
Is he still ends up in jail. And by the way, I really feel that, what was that, Niamos, that beach planet? Man, I thought I was watching Myrtle Beach in space. I mean, it looked...
It's about time, yeah. Niamos. I thought it was like, Star Wars, you have the desert planet, the snow planet, the forest planet. This is the Miami Vice planet,
Yeah, it totally was. So he got
even
pinched
the music
there on Niamos.
Sounded like something right out of Jan Hammer's playbook, the music.
But anyway, getting back to the imps there, the ISB, Deidre has been way ahead of all this stuff, and you look at Cassian, and Cassian, he sort of, in a way, gets what's coming to him in a sense, because he did, he's broken these laws. He killed these 2 security officers. He was complicit in this, they're very instrumental in this heist. He still, despite trying to fly off to Miami, he gets picked up. And Deidre, she gets what's coming to her. She's been, she gets rewarded for her sort of rebellious, out of the box way of thinking. And, and as she says, she's the one that, the episode is called Announcement. She's the one that coins that and says that this was not a robbery. This was an announcement. And that, that there is, she believes, this network. And then we flash over to this conversation with Luthen and Mon, and some heavy stuff thrown down there. But what do you think about Deidre in this episode? And, what does this say about her future with the ISB and the Empire?
Oh, she's moving on up.
Yes.
She's definitely moving on up. But I don't think the watch your back warning should be taken lightly. I think we're going to see some sort of assassination attempt on her.
Oh, yeah.
Perhaps by Blevin. Miro, Blevin, and Partagas. Sounds like a law firm.
Like beat him, cheat him, and how?
Yeah, right. We've seen 2 examples of foreshadowing that there's going to be a move made against Miro in 2 episodes in a row, when she was sniffing around and she said, "Be careful," to her. And then now Partagas is saying, "Watch your back. You better be careful." So she's ambition is a weird thing in the Imperial ranks. It could get you killed instantly, or it could win you a promotion. You just have to roll the dice sometimes. If you're sitting on something hot like she is, and she's putting the pieces together, and she's even revealing a flaw in the way Partagas has sort of divvied up the sectors in that part of the galaxy. That part I was struggling to follow along with.
Well, I like that she says that the rebels don't care about arbitrary lines that we draw.
Exactly.
The systems. And it was basically what she was calling out was that the those that were overseeing these systems were treating them, I think she says, like almost like playthings. They weren't taking them very seriously. They were using them, I think they were exploiting them. They were enriching themselves, jockeying for power, while in the meantime, right under their noses, there was a rebellion brewing across all the systems. So that's, I think, what she was getting at. What's the old guy's name? The guy with the mullet, her boss.
Partagas.
Yeah, easy for you to say. Partagas?
Partagas.
Partagas.
Yeah,
there he is.
I like him. I like that guy. I like
I do
actor.
too.
I like his vibe, his Imperial vibe. And I like the way he conducted that meeting too, even though he might have felt insulted that Deidre was saying systems change or they become obsolete or whatever she said. I'm paraphrasing. But, he could have taken that as an insult. Darth Vader would have choked her. But this guy, he had open ears and he wanted to hear what she had to say. And but it's her ambition that's going to get her in trouble. And that's going to be with Blevin.
Yeah. And she was able to kind of use an emergency act in the wake of the Aldhani thing to get that guy, whatever his name was, Fezios or something like that, to pull all theft across all systems of, she named a list of things that she wanted tracked, but basically Imperial technology, aircraft or spacecraft, all of these things. And then she was able to tie those thefts back to rebel activity. So creating a pattern. And that's what he was so impressed by. It seemed that Partagas was impressed by, and Blevin, not so much. He's the fall guy. And he's one of these guys that was just using his position, over his system to just, for clout. That's what it was. It was all for clout, I think, with these guys. And they're getting...
It's very territorial, you know? And I think the Empire creates that sort of culture where they believe that, the Empire is fueled by the evil Sith Lord machine of Palpatine, and that obviously, just like any turd, it rolls downhill. And all of these Imperial officers are downhill, and they're getting smacked with Palpatine turds left and right. And so they turn against each other to move up, to fuel their ambition. And the Empire considers that to be healthy, I think. It brings the cream to the top.
Yeah, and I was thinking as they were dropping Palpatine's name and Yularen was talking about, hearing directly from the Emperor and all of this, I have a hard time believing that he does much administrative work. I don't see him as being a desk jockey. I think that he's sitting over his cauldron of Sith spells and magic, and he's working on bigger things, on the metaphysical level. So I can't imagine when he gets, his frustration when he gets pulled away from his Sithy work, to deal with a robbery or, something like that. He's got layers of bureaucracy.
Take a call from Yularen.
Yeah, right.
That's just gonna. Oh man, do I have to clear my schedule? I don't want to talk to him. And that's the thing.
He probably has a special ringtone for Yularen, so he knows when it's Yularen. he can avoid it.
But also, again, like I said, these guys, they're all sort of, they snipe at each other. They're territorial. They're protective over their territories and systems and everything. And Yularen could just be bullshitting them. Oh, well, there's no other way to put it. He could be BSing these guys.
Right.
Saying that he spoke to the emperor directly. I mean, who's going to verify that information?
True.
Who's going to follow up with the emperor to verify?
That's a great point.
Yularen this morning?
Anyone can say that. Oh, I just talked to the emperor. Right. It's not like he keeps a log, like the president of the United States does, where he keeps a log of his activity. I don't think Palpatine's passing that along to anybody. And by the way, this is a call-in show, so we want to make sure that you get a chance to be heard. We'd love to have your calls. Tyler, our call screener, is here. Oh, Jimmy Matt goes to the well of the original Star Wars novelization. But Tyler, the switchboard's open, so we already got a couple of people in the queue, so hopefully we'll have some more. 708-866-1737.
Call on in, man.
This prologue, I'm sorry, Tyler, but I just want to say real quick before we go off the Palpatine discussion. In the prologue to the original novelization of Star Wars, it says this about the Emperor. Once secure in office, he declared himself Emperor, which we see in Revenge of the Sith. Shutting himself away from the populace. Soon he was controlled by the very assistants and bootlickers he had appointed to high office, like Yularen, when he's lying to everybody about talking to Palpatine. And the cries of the people for justice did not reach his ears. So he was completely closed off from any sort of governmental duties.
You know what bugs me, though, about that line is it implies that if the cries of injustice would have gotten to him, that he might have done something about it. But the cries of injustice, not only do they fall on deaf ears, he doesn't hear them, but he is the reason for the injustice. He's inflicting the injustice. So it makes me wonder when that was written, not to go off on too much of a tangent, when that was written that he may have at one time been, meant to be a sympathetic or a ruler of some sort, or that he did have good intentions at one point, but the power and the bureaucracy went to his head and all of that. But I've always remembered that line.
Because it's not Palpatine who's inflicting the reign of terror on the galaxy. It's his imperial forces. It's the governors and the bureaucrats. They're doing all the dirty work. He's staying back behind locked doors.
Well, but he's giving the order. They're not doing anything. It's not as though he's trying to create some culture of, kumbaya and love. I mean, this is all, like you said, the turds rolling downhill. So,
right. Well, that's what I mean. I'm not saying that he's trying to be just or benevolent or anything like that. His apathy, he just doesn't care. And so without, anyone in charge, all the underlings, they're just going wild. They're running wild in the galaxy.
There's definitely, something to that.
And when they need to run more wild, he just creates these. There's a passage of some new bill that says, anybody picked up for just walking around, they don't get jailed for 6 months anymore. They get jailed for 6 years. It's just a lack of tolerance.
Yes.
There's no tolerance in the galaxy.
No, not at all. Tyler, phone number 708-866-1737. I see you got some folks waiting for you, so we'll let you go. We'll check in with you at the end. So thanks for being here, buddy. Appreciate it as always. That conversation between Mon and Luthen, fantastic. Some things that because they have a very different style. Luthen is ruthless. Luthen is a by all means necessary kind of leader, whereas Mon Mothma doesn't quite. Yeah, she's a politician. She doesn't.
Yeah, she's still part of the machine.
Yes, but she's learning. They continue to refer to the rebellion as a network, and Luthen says, with the Empire clamping down as a result, you can see what the goal was. The goal was probably two-pronged. One, they needed the money. Two, they needed to make a big statement so that the Empire would start to clamp down harder to get people to notice, because he says the Empire's been strangling us for so long, we don't even notice it anymore. So they need something to wake up the populace. Marva is a great example of that. Marva is reawakened. Marva went down to the town square where her husband was hung for the first time since the incident happened, because she's emboldened by this. If what happened on Aldhani if those people can pull that off, then she can stand her ground there on Ferrix. Very inspirational, but at the same hand, on the same hand, very, very dangerous. Force their hand, says Luthen. And he says also to Mon Mothma, there are no rules. You risk your conscience. And then lastly, Jim, as she's taking off, he says to his assistant there, he says, we can't hide forever. And that's as they do a close-up on Mon Mothma. And what I took from that was, eventually, Luthen knows that this movement is going to need a public face. And that's what his role he has in mind for Mon Mothma. And she may not even know it.
Yeah. And we're still a few years away from that.
Yes.
Because according to Star Wars Rebels, it happens about 2 years before A New Hope. So Mon is going to be part of the machine for the next few years. But Andor is supposed to count down the years via story arcs in season 2 of years, 4 years before A New Hope, all the way to the beginning of Rogue One. So that stuff will have to come into play. Mon leaving the Senate and going into exile to organize the rebellion even further. That's going to have to happen. So how we get there, I mean, it's a long way from now, because she's still really working in the shadows and hasn't really committed to the whole idea of a full-on war, which is what they're gearing up for, is civil war. So
no, I think
that's something
she's
I always
slowly
wondered about.
waking up to it. I think she finds the conversation with Luthen obviously to be annoying, frustrating, but eye-opening. And then something in her conversation with Tay really starts to grind her gears, and she starts to assert herself and really wants to be seen, and she wants to let him know that she is a cog in this wheel. And so it seems like she's approaching it with a lot of gusto. She wants to tell him, and then all of a sudden she backs off and just says, let's leave it at, I need you to run this charity for me, and the rest you don't need to know. You can't know. Yeah.
Just to cover up those loose ends again.
Right.
Another loose end we forgot about is the trawler, which is that ship they use.
Yes. Right.
All right. We're getting some foreshadowing about that. Vel says she buried it. I think it's going to be discovered, Yeah. It's going to be like Goodfellas when they found that guy.
When he bought the Cadillac.
So, but the trawler's out there. So that's the ship. And we were talking about the rails last week, the rails. Why the rails? Why can't it just take off? Somebody explained it to me, and it made all the sense in the world. They said, for the ship to get down there, it has to go to this vault underground for it to be loaded. Thus the rails. So the rails get it down in there.
Oh, okay.
And then you get it back out. You just blast out the rails.
Yeah.
Whatever.
Hey,
I thought it was cool.
Yeah, yeah, it was. Was I the only one when you saw the KX droid come up out of the water or off the beach there that was going to be K2SO? But he's not a K2. He's a KX. I guess there's a difference.
But
we know that's likely to not happen until the second season, or at the very end, at best, of this season.
Yeah, they've already said it's not going to happen until season 2, which wasn't always the plan. When Stephen Schiff was developing the show, it was the adventures of Cassian and K2. but that's before they took it into a darker direction. I think these droids are probably called KX droids, and it's Cassian who changes the designation to K2, maybe.
That they're all KX?
Because if so he can communicate to the droid when there's other KX droids around. If he says K2, then only this droid, because these droids are dumb as stumps, man. He says, hang on to him.
He's like Frankenstein.
Hang on to him. Okay. Yeah. Going up. So, he does.
How unreasonable was that shore trooper? Hey, you're sweating. Hey, you're walking away. Hey. Look, there, Jimmy Mack with turning it into prop comedy here with all the action figures. I've been playing with
these toys all day long. So you name an action figure, you get it. You name a character, you get the
shore trooper. Another little detail I loved was, and I'm just digging the whole espionage angle of this, like the little symbol on the floor, that Clea that Vel sees, and when she finds her way to Clea. I thought that was really cool. But wait, the
rewind. What little symbol?
There was a little symbol on the floor. It looked like a circle with a line. So it was like, it was obviously some sort of mark of where to go, where to run, where to have these clandestine meetings, things like that. You didn't pick up on that?
By me. Nope.
Oh yeah.
I missed that one.
Yeah. So and it just shows that it's everywhere, that there are these little symbols. It's kind of like, back during the Depression and the guys, the hobos that ran the rails, they would put little marks on the fence of the houses where you could get a cup of coffee or a loaf of bread. There was these little symbols, the whole language that this underground would use. Well, we got, let's go to we got a super chat here before we get any further here. This is Turtle Wars, says, this was by far my favorite episode of Andor so far. It felt like I was actually watching new Star Wars again today. It was nice to see a decent variety of troopers, droids, and aliens in this episode. A few aliens, still not enough for me. I'm not going to give them any high marks on the alien. Droids, okay, I'll give you. But as Max said last week, can I get an astromech, please? Saw a mouse droid. That was cool. And a KX droid. But
I may have spotted one in the corner of Mon Mothma's place during that bash she was throwing.
Was there one? Maybe serving drinks or something?
No, it looked like it wasn't even operating. It was just back there. It happened so fast I didn't even freeze frame. But we don't ask for much, give us great Star Wars story. Give us gritty, mature entertainment, well acted, well written, well directed, and just looks good on the screen. Yeah, that's all great. But throw in some stormtroopers as Star Destroyer, maybe a mouse droid or two. Yeah, we don't ask for much. That's all we need. We just need to know where we're at. And sometimes there's been moments in this show that just did not resemble Star Wars at all. And we just want to be there, that's all. It's just a place we want to go to.
Yeah.
It doesn't affect the quality of the writing, the acting, the direction, all that stuff. This is a great show. But, and it's getting greater. The more elements that get brought into it that connect it to the big picture as far as Star Wars go. Even cameo from Yularen. That's great stuff.
Oh, it's fantastic.
But what's more important is we really get to see the inner workings of the Empire, how things go down in their meetings, Well, I mean, sure, we saw a meeting in the very first Star Wars. Tarkin was sitting there and Vader was choking Mahdi, and it was just a blast. And so now to get back into some of these meetings without a guy choking everyone, and just let these guys scrap amongst themselves like Siamese fighting fish.
Well,
I enjoy that very much.
You bring up a good point, the juxtaposition of what we see with the ISB sitting around having these meetings. It's all very normal, right? So when Vader shows up to the party, and now all of a sudden they're starting to hear whispers about sorcery and magic. I think that And I'm not being an apologist or making any excuses. You can think what you want about it. I think that it makes the stuff that does involve the Jedi and the Sith and, all that, the sorcery, the fantasy, I think it makes it feel all that more special. I think it's a good idea to have a perspective of what the ground level feels. So you can see how a character like a Han Solo could say hokey, what is it? Ancient religions or hokey religions and ancient nonsense.
It's something like that.
You're
fine.
Ancient nonsense and hokey religions. I don't know.
Ancient religions. Ancient nonsense. That's what we should call this show.
Yeah, ancient nonsense. The point being, they'll have it in the chat. Don't worry. They keep us honest on this stuff. We can't know everything.
Hokey religions and ancient
nonsense, I believe.
No.
Hokey.
Son of a
Tyler,
gun.
do you know? Ancient magic? I don't know. I'm usually much better at this. Tyler doesn't know. Look it up, Tyler.
I forgot
Bring that up, Jamie.
I'm gonna have another drink of this blue stuff.
We're gonna make Tyler start doing
ancient weapons.
Ancient weapons what is it?
And hokey religions.
And hokey religions. Ancient weapons. Damn. Okay. All right, well, we flunked that one. Anyway, my point in all of this is that I think that it's really important to get a sense of what the real, when I say real world, I don't mean our real world, but what the real world of a galaxy far, far away is like. And then you start to infuse it with all this stuff because it's really easy to, when you watch, I would say most of Star Wars, with the exception of this series and maybe some episodes of Rebels and things like that, to think that everybody knows about Jedi and Sith and the Force and lightsabers and all of that. And it's just important to have a sort of a grounding of no, not everyone does know. And when it happens, it's very special. And I think if Dave Filoni was sitting here, I think he would say something to that extent about it having to feel special when it shows up.
Also, the presence of Vader amongst Imperial ranks. It does more than just keep them well disciplined and on their toes. I think it also inspires them. It inspires them to hunt down and find any Force user that still might be out there in the galaxy because they see what kind of damage a Force user can cause.
Yeah.
And their buddies are getting choked out and all of this stuff. That, to me, would, as an Imperial officer, if I was hanging out and I came up through school with Admiral Ozzel. Like we were like dorm mates and best buddies.
You and Ozzel? I got to picture this.
Me and Ozzel.
You and Ozzel. Yeah. Okay. You picked Ozzel. You had a lot of imps to choose from, but you went with Ozzel.
I am going with Ozzel because he gets choked to death. And when I found out about that as his old buddy from school, I was just texting him yesterday. I found out he got choked. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to take out my rage on every Force user I can find in this galaxy. And I'm going to bring them to justice, or I'm going to exterminate them, or what have you, because I see what kind of damage a Force user can have when left unchecked. I mean, me and Ozzel, we had plans to take the old ladies on this vacation to Scarif on Thanksgiving.
You don't want to go to Niamos? That's quite the
no. That's for
palace.
Spring break. That's for spring break. Yeah.
That's a young person's game. Let's take some calls. We got a Patreon waiting on the line. By the way, that number to call 708-866-1737. So give us a ring. We got Gar, Patreon member from Utah. Hey, Gar. Hello, Gar. Hello, Gar.
Hello.
Hello.
Hey.
Hello, Gar.
Hey.
Let me give you a chut.
Chut water.
Oh.
Nice.
Chut. Hey, I was calling because in Rogue One, I don't know if you guys remember this conversation when he's captured by Saw. Chirrut says, "Relax, Captain. We've been in worse cages than this one." And Andor says, this is the first for me. And Cheer goes on too. It says there's more than one sort of prison captain. I sense that you carry yours wherever you go. I mean, it seems to imply that he's never been in prison or cage or anything, but he was in prison before, we know, and then now he's going to be in prison again, it sounds like.
So Gar, I have a pretty good explanation for this. They wrote Rogue One before they wrote the Andor series, so they wouldn't have known.
Oh, interesting. You don't say.
No, I'm kidding. This does happen. This does happen when you tell stories in this way, out of order. Here's my in-world explanation. I believe that Cassian has lived a life almost of a serial liar. At the end of this episode, he's Keith. He's Clem.
He also lies to Bix. He gives Bix 12,000 and says that's all I have, when we know he has a lot more than that.
So my contention, Gar, is that I don't think he's ever honest with anybody. I think he's told so many lies, and he's lived so many different personas or whatever that he doesn't even know in some ways. But I think he's always just throwing stuff out there to keep people away from knowing the real guy. I think I can accept that.
Or Vel busts him out of prison before he even has to serve an hour of time in there. He's getting transported to the prison.
No.
She ambushes the ship in episode 8.
So. No, it can't be. It can't be because Skeen, they talk about being in cages when they were little kids. He's been in cages in juvie or whatever. He talks about the cages. Remember, he and Skeen are talking about the cages, and then we started making the connection maybe between migrants and things like that. So cages have come up in a couple of times.
He probably went in jail right after he attacked those clone troopers in that flashback.
Yeah. Well, you've done it for me, Gar. I can't watch this show anymore. I'm done. I know that wasn't the point you were trying to make, but
I was just seeing what your take is on that. And do you think they'll show him eventually become a captain in the rebellion then, I guess?
I do. I think I can't wait until they start just a shortage of internet in the neighborhood tonight, but we're not going to let that dissuade us. Let's see. Jim, can you go ahead and can you entertain the people for a few moments, and we'll get connected to the soundboard and bring our callers on? Would you do that?
Yeah, sure. I assume we are back. I haven't seen any movement there. Oh, hey, there we are. Yeah, we are back. We are back. Amazing to be back here with everyone. I forgot the pizzos. I meant to bring them, especially the greeny green ones. I need pizzos, and I need Revnog, and I need them stat. But for now, I'll be enjoying some of Perrin's Embassy Punch. It's fabulous. Just don't drink it because it could poison you, because it is, of course, Windex. So I think we are back. If you guys are still watching, thank you for sticking with us through the technical difficulties we went through. We lost some internet connection there. And we learned that you can restart the stream on YouTube. So that's pretty cool. Next time that happens, we won't freak out as much. But I would love to tell everyone some college stories about myself and Admiral Ozel. We were both pledged at the same fraternity, and it was the Delta House. And sure, we threw the toga parties and got involved in all sort of altercations with campus police and the townies. But it was a really good time there on. We were actually in Mos Espa, is where the university was located. And it's hot as balls in Mos Espa, let me tell you. And Ozel, I'm sorry, I'm confusing my guys because I'm looking at you, Lauren, right here. But Ozzel, he responded very poorly to the heat, and man, he was the sweatiest guy that I knew, and so I was surprised when he actually got choked out by Vader that he wasn't just lying there in a puddle of his own perspiration, but he took it like a man. So here's to Admiral Ozzel and the old college years, and hopefully Jason will be back here pretty soon.
I'm back.
Oh, and I think you were just gonna let me keep going, weren't you?
No. I would never leave you out hanging like that. Let's see if we can talk to Todd from Columbus, also a Patreon member.
And I think that's what's going to push him to finally commit to the cause.
All right. Well, Todd,
wanted to see what.
Yeah, well, a lot of people are saying that it's going to be the manifesto that's going to push him to the cause. I was surprised that there was no reference to the manifesto in this episode, but as we know with manifestos, they're very popular in prisons, and so I'm guessing that he's going to have a lot of time to be reading that manifesto in jail. So I still am in the camp that it's going to be the manifesto that's going to really sort of turn him into a true believer. But Jim, Todd is saying that he thinks that the loose thread out there is the sister.
Well, Cassian's a big loose thread, and the trawler's a big loose thread. The sister, I mean, in context of what?
Well, that is what is going to. Well, Todd, you said it. I don't want to put words in your mouth.
I think the Empire is going to be behind whatever trouble she's in. If she is still in that sordid life, I think somehow there's some plot device that's going to say the Empire is behind it.
So Empire is going to take out the sister, and that's what is going to really make Andor dedicated to the cause. It's going to get very personal for him. Because Skeen was,
I think it could bookend the season where you had that the first scene in the first episode, and maybe that's
all right.
Something that happened in the last episode.
We're going to put Todd down as prophet or loser with his theory. Hey, thanks, Todd. Appreciate the call, and really do appreciate you hanging on. And
I was going through a little bit of distortion on my end and really couldn't hear Todd until it cleared up at the end. And I also know we dropped the stream again, so we're back up on YouTube once again. So hopefully the hamsters keep running in the wheel to power your internet, and they don't take a break again.
Yeah, let's hope
we can continue streaming. And thank you everyone for sticking with us. We appreciate your patience.
Yeah, for sure.
Sorry for any
Jim, what about this thing that you got? This notification you got about a friend of yours having his mom was in this episode? What's the deal?
Yeah.
With this?
All right, so Andy Lith, he's a Rebel Force radio listener, and he's in a UK band called Blues Harvest or Blue Harvest. It's just Blue Harvest, right?
Blue Harvest. Yeah.
I don't think it's Blues Harvest. It's Blue Harvest. And they've recorded all sort of fun Star Wars parody songs over the years, and they perform at conventions and stuff. And we met them in Chicago for Star Wars Celebration back in 2019, and they were real nice. And I am friends with Andy on Facebook, and he shared a post from his mom, Hazel Lith. And Hazel appeared in this episode of Andor. There, Jason has some photos.
Check it out.
So we see her right away in the first shot of the beach dwellers of the name of that.
Naimo?
Yeah. The Miami Vice Planet.
Niamos.
And so she was featured in a few shots. She's an extra, and there she is.
Yeah.
So congratulations, cool. Andy. Your mom is canon. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah, we can't say that really for all our moms. Here's another shot. Yeah. You can see her.
Yeah, right. Just hanging out there with an alien that looks kind of like a cocktail weenie, I think. Or, like a shriveled up date, or I don't know.
He is very weenie like,
half a scrotum or something.
Right, the wheels are coming off. All right, Chris from Knoxville, also a Patreon member, on the line next. Hello, Chris.
Hey guys, how you doing tonight?
All right,
Hey,
we're
Chris.
hanging in there, buddy.
Yeah.
Well, that's good. I'm glad you keep the hamsters running.
Oh.
I had a quick question about what do you think how this corresponds with Rebels? I'm really liking Andor, and it started me watching Rebels again. And so it seemed like, or I don't know if you guys have any thoughts or anyone's talked about where if Andor, if the Aldhani incident happens before Rebels starts or after Rebels starts, or has there been any word on that?
Well, we know that this is 5 years before the Battle of Yavin, and I feel like Rebels is more like 3 years before Battle.
I thought Rebels was like 5 to 2 years before
2 to 5.
Hope.
Yeah, 2 to 5. So in the ballpark,
Okay.
yeah, in the ballpark of the same time. But you know how when you watch a movie or a TV show and it says any similarities between people living or dead is purely coincidental? I think you could say that about this series with respect to animated Star Wars. I don't think that is what the Gilroys are into. And, you know, I think based on our conversation with FJ DeSanto and things that Jimmy Mack has speculated, that the story group is there to sort of add the Star Wars sizzle with names of planets and, dropping in little Easter eggs here and there. But as far as this tying in, becoming interwoven with the events of Rebels, I don't think that's what this series is going to do. Probably going to see more of that in Ahsoka. And, but I can just imagine the look on a Tony Gilroy's face when you say, yeah, but in Rebels.
Yeah, but Tony Gilroy aside, as far as us fans, it is kind of interesting to understand that events in Rebels are happening concurrently with the events in Andor, which sort of fuels part of the Andor narrative. The thing that is alerting Deidre, and she's connecting the dots between all of these, what she thinks are organized and coordinated rebel attacks in all of these different sectors.
Mm-hmm.
Now, that could be some of the activity the Ghost might be up to. However, this is probably very early in the timeline for the Ghost crew and stuff, so they might still be farting around on Lothal. And Lothal definitely catches the attention of the Empire in this time period.
Yeah. Yeah. It's definitely like we say, it's in the ballpark, but I don't see it actually being a big part of this. But we, as Max says, as fans, can create those connections, and there's probably enough there. Thanks a lot, Chris. Appreciate it. First time caller, love it, and a Patreon member. So thank you very much, Chris. By the way, I think we lost a couple of super chats. So I think there were 2 in the queue. So really, 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 really sorry we didn't get to those. If they were your super chat, don't do another super chat. Just put us a comment in the regular, and then maybe just like start it with super chat. Just start your chat, your comment, your question, or whatever with super chat. We'll make sure that it gets on. So sorry about that. Meanwhile, we're going to go to another Patreon member, Brian. Brian calling in from New York also has some questions about Rebels. Hello, Brian.
Hey, Jason. Hey, Jimmy.
Hello.
Hey. Hi. So one thing I noticed about the show when things become so granular as they are on the show is that it starts to really humanize a lot of the characters. And one thing it humanizes actually is the Empire. And the more we get to know Deidre, the more I've noticed myself starting to root for Deidre a little bit, and she's starting to appeal to me. And I'm also learning more about Luthen and his tactics and how he's willing to go to any means to achieve his goals. And some of those means are maybe not exactly moral, where he's putting people in positions where they might get harmed or die to move forward his ambitions. And it's kind of interesting the way that dynamic and how you start to view the Empire in a certain way, you start to view the rebels in a certain way. And it kind of changes your perspective a little bit at times when you get to know the characters as well. And I wanted to know
No, it really does. I want to go back to what you said about Deidre. What is it in particular about Deidre, Brian, other than your fascist tendencies that you like? I'm just kidding. I'm kidding. No, but what is it about that character that you're finding compelling or sympathetic or so interesting? But you're right. I think she's very interesting.
I just find her very capable, and she's in her sort of little inner office conflict with her coworker or whatever you want to call it, like how that back and forth and how we're seeing her get the upper hand on him, and you're kind of rooting for her to maybe to ascend in the organization, and you see her supervisor sort of taking her under his wing, and you're just kind of seeing her move forward, and you're kind of rooting for her, and you want to see where she goes, and I kind of want to I'm rooting for her actually to even find out more about Andor and to get to the bottom of it and to see her actually succeed in some way in her goals that she has in her position. And
I love what you're saying, because it does kind of have us in some ways rooting for people on both sides a little bit, as an audience member. Obviously, we know what happens. Clearly we know what happens, but we don't know how it happens necessarily in all cases. And so, yeah, I'm totally with you. I love that it humanizes both sides. It shows it takes them from being two-dimensional cartoon characters and makes them feel very, very real. And I like that without it getting too real world. And there's a fine line. And I think that they're balancing it really, really, really nicely. Jim, are you finding yourself glued or interested in characters on both sides?
Yeah, extremely so, especially Deidre, because she's the underdog. She's the only woman in that room, and she is not backing down to obvious pressure that they're putting on her. The whole watch your back thing. She stood there when he said that to her and walked away. Partagas said that to her and he walked away. She stood there and she was like, standing her ground, was proud, and she had a smile on her face.
Yeah.
So she's like, I like that.
Look
she's
over
like,
my shoulder.
She's like, bring it.
Yeah.
And so, I think she's a really strong character. And I think, the knowledge is power kind of thing. And she's sniffing a trail that few have taken the time to even acknowledge. And I think it's going to pay off big time for her. Might even catch the attention of Tarkin or Palpatine or someone.
Who is this Deidre Miro? Bring her to me.
Oh man, then the show would really take off,
Yeah.
But he gives her a little blast of Sith lightning or something just to keep her in. That's the type of Star Wars I would be writing. Maybe that is fan.
Yeah, she gets a little blast of Sith lightning, whether she needs it or not.
Yeah. Hey, did you catch the
Brian?
top
Thanks,
secret?
buddy. Appreciate the call and the
Brian.
Patreon support.
Did you catch the top secret door knock that Andor uses to get Bix's attention? The old. Did you catch that?
Yes, that's right. I did.
I was like, wow, the sound guys, I don't know what they were thinking with that, but talk about an earthbound reference. As a matter of fact, I watched the episode with the descriptive audio track on, and I think they take some liberties with the descriptive audio track for that moment when Andor knocks for her, and it's just, you have the audio.
On Ferrix, Cassian scales a wall.
Yeah, here, let's listen.
On Ferrix, Cassian scales a wall at Bix's place of business. Picking up a pebble from the gravel, he brings it to a cone of sheet metal along an exposed brick wall and begins tapping on it.
Shave and a haircut, 2 bits.
Wow, man. It doesn't even sound like Diego Luna. You talk about liberties.
Yeah, that's what I mean. I think they were just taking some liberties.
They're just trying to see if anyone's listening. Is anybody listening to this?
I was listening.
Yeah, no doubt. No doubt. I had another thing I wanted to. Well, I had lots of things I wanted to bring up. Bix, boy, I knew that young Chase Norton, not as young as he used to be, but young Chase Norton, he's got his eyes set on Bix. A lot of us do. She's fantastic, and he was super excited to see her back in this episode. I was as well. But Cassian, he's so excited. He risked his life for this heist, this score. He was doing it for the money, but at the same time, he was doing it for Marva. He was doing it for Bix, obviously, because they're the two that he comes back for to say, guess what? I've got money. Let's go. We can leave this place and we can live happily ever after. And what happens? His own adopted mother says no. Bix says no. Can you believe that? After she's been roughed up by the Empire. And how does this sting? Oh man, you can tell that that they once obviously had a thing. He says he thinks he's gonna, when you're having that argument with that girl, and you think you got that stinger line that's really gonna level them, and then they one up you. This is what happens.
Mm-hmm.
He's playing the martyr. He's like, everyone needs to forget about me. No one, he's like, no one loves me. No one cares about me. And Bix goes, I've forgotten you before. Like I can do it again. Like it's not the first time she's had to get over Andor. So I thought that was interesting. And yeah, he thought he really had one on her. Not so much.
She blames the entire Imperial occupation of her whole planet on this one dude.
Yes.
If you hadn't killed those cops and then come to hide out here, implicating everyone, then the Empire wouldn't have come in here, killed Tim, and kicked out Corsac and taken over the hotel.
I think she's a little bit of an apologist for Tim. I think that Tim got what he deserved. He let his jealousy over Bix get to him, and he decided that it would be more than appropriate. And let's face it, he was just jealous. He thought that there might still be something going on between the two, and he's like, I know a way to get rid of this guy. I'll turn him in, and he can spend the rest of his life rotting in prison. I mean, I don't know that the punishment fits the crime, per se,
Well, it seemed inevitable Andor would be on his way to prison somewhere, somehow, some way, either as Cassian Andor or as Clem or as Keith Girgo or whoever he wants to go by. The guy was on a fast track to serving time. Will he make it to prison? That's the thing I'm wondering. Will he make it? I think
definitely.
I predict in the transfer that he will get busted out because he's too hot of a loose end.
Haven't we seen clips of him in prison?
Not that I can recall.
I thought we've seen. That's what people were saying last week. They're like, I think there were clips of him in prison. David, by the way, David was one of the super chats that we lost. He said, did Nemec's manifesto get left behind in Keith's briefcase hidden in the shower? That's a good question. Thanks, Arafat.
Or maybe he left that behind at home at Marva's.
Could be.
And maybe Marva finds it and that gets her all fired up.
Or are we making too much of this manifesto? We could be making too much of it.
Maybe. But I think it's something that's really going to end up fueling Cassian and pushing him, Uh-oh. Where'd I go?
Where did you go?
Am I gone? I just disappeared. What the hell is going on here?
We've
had enough weird tech things going on. There's
an errant mouse click.
All right.
There he is.
Hey, we were talking about the relationship between Bix and Cassian. What about the relationship between Mon and Perrin? It seemed like there's some real strong words being used about him. Most specifically, Perrin is not to be trusted.
Wow.
So this is beyond, cracks in the relationship. This is full on, I cannot trust him. He's my husband. I cannot trust him. So he's part of the machine. He's part, he bleeds the Empire colors, I guess. And she needs to work around him because she believes she'll never be able to convince him to join this this movement she has going.
I think he strikes me as what you might call a kept man, right? I think that he is he's happy to be the spouse of a senator. He likes the spoils of that. He probably comes from, elitist stock would be my guess.
Yes.
And he's very comfortable. And I don't think that he's a man of principle. I think he's probably a man of practicality and he likes the life that he has. Why should I change? I'm doing fine. I don't need to worry about the plebes. I think that's
status quo.
Right.
Is what he wants.
Don't rock the boat.
And that means being a loyal servant to the empire. And should he catch wind of what Mon is up to, and I think that's inevitable. I think it's going to happen, and he's going to have to be silent somehow. Maybe that's what Mon has some real hard decisions to make.
Yes.
Yeah, maybe. But I thought that was a really interesting development in revealing more about their relationship. I thought that really spoke volumes for her to say that about her husband.
Yeah.
Things are rocky.
And I, maybe I'm just a hopeless romantic, but was I nuts in picking up like this? Is this just a friendship between her and Tay? Do you get the sense that there might have been something else back in the day? She's almost giddy, to see him. She's
and she holds on to him, and she's handsy. And even when the daughter walked away, she's like, "Have fun, Mom."
Yeah, right.
Like even the daughter was seeing something going on there.
Yeah, have fun with your friend.
Yeah. So I don't think it's incorrect to look deeper into that. And while I think it's precious that you're such a hopeless romantic, and I know Mrs. Swank really appreciates that as well.
Yes,
I don't think you're off the beaten path here. I think you're sniffing up the right tree there, romance boy.
All right, here's Trenton from Kansas, first time caller. Got a connection between Andor and KOTOR. Andor and KOTOR. Hey, Trenton.
Nothing specific. And by the way, sorry, I had just put on my Jawa robes, and I might have pulled a network cable or two.
Oh.
Get this patient.
I thought it was Minox chewing on the power lines.
What do you got for us, buddy?
But I just remember you saying, talking about like a KOTOR generation. I definitely feel like I'm part of that kind of like in between prequel and Clone Wars heyday of the EU. But I think it's interesting because those two games were just very different games. I know like a lot of this, like the conversation around this show has been what makes something feel Star Warsy, and despite being like very varied, like one is high adventure and one is like a very philosophical, like contemplative. Everyone is bad, and can you really do good? As like a core theme. It's interesting watching this show play out, and like what you guys like. How much can you take a little of like the tone changing, or is it a lot of like the non-warsy, Greeblies not being cool enough kind of thing that really gets you out, or is it just too much of each?
For me, I gotta say it's the alien stuff. I mean, if I have to pick nits on this series, it is the lack of aliens. There are some in-world ways that you can explain it away. I get it. The Empire is very speciest. There's a lot of prejudice. They don't, so it's not odd to see all humans in the Empire, but it is odd to see. We've seen a number of we've seen Ferrex. We have seen now Naimos. We saw Aldhani, and we saw a bar. Where was the bar? Was that on Coruscant when he first goes in the first episode?
That was in that.
It wasn't Coruscant. So there's another planet.
Blade Runner planet.
Right. We've seen a number of yes. Now there was a Twi'lek entertaining there, but we've been on a number of planets, and I just don't think we've seen enough aliens. I really don't. And I don't know why. This has actually been a trend Honestly, this was a trend throughout the sequel trilogy. Filoni and Favreau seem to be giving us a decent amount in Mando. Of course, we had to have it in Book of Boba Fett because they were in Jabba's palace, but not a lot in this series. So if I had to make one complaint about the un-Star Warsiness of this, that would be what I would go to. But that's really it, to be honest.
Yeah. Well, I spent a week railing on all the things that I felt like were missing a mark as far as Star Wars goes, and I've come to accept Andor for it is what it is, and I'm just focused more on the story and the vibe of this particular show, and it's I look at it as an experiment. How far can they push Star Wars into that HBO drama kind of territory? And I think it's an interesting experience to see how far you can push Star Wars in that direction and still have it feel like Star Wars. And we all know what the intangibles are. And like I said, I laid out a pretty detailed list a few weeks ago.
Yeah, I'm hoping what they can show is like at the end of a show like this, you can do both, and you can consistently switch between, this is going to be a really adult themed one. This is going to be a heist movie in space, and like Clone Wars, kind of week to week, drastically shift tone and kind of style.
I'm a believer that the universe is big enough and the themes are large enough in Star Wars that it can survive and thrive in a lot of different types of shows. But they always have to bring it back at some point to the kernel of what it's all about. Hey, thanks very much. Appreciate it, Trenton. Glad you found us. Thanks for taking the time to call. We've got another Patreon member here. We've got Charles from California. And Charles apparently feels very fat and satisfied by Andor.
Yeah, chut.
Chut.
Chut guys. Yes, I'm feeling very, very fat and satisfied. I'm loving the look at the Empire, peeling back and seeing, they have this plan. They've been working so hard. They have these contingency retaliation plans. The one leader mentioned he had just talked with Palpatine, and they have a empire-wide crackdown. This really reminds me about what Leia said in Episode 4, how the tighter, they squeeze, the more slips through their fingers. I think this was really going to fuel the rebellion, this kind of disproportionate crackdown on people that really didn't have anything to do with it.
Yeah, that's Luthen's strategy for sure, is to push the Empire to their potential. So the curtain gets removed and people see them for the evil, oppressive government that they are, this force of nature that's really stifling independence and life and lifestyle and humanity and everything. There's no freedom. So nobody's really seeing that though, because everyone's happy that the Clone Wars are over and there's a facade of order in the galaxy. But meanwhile, everyone's being stripped of their freedom and independence, and they just really don't even realize it. So Luthen is looking to wake people up. And the way to do that is to push and push and push, keep poking the bear. So the bear eventually gets up and starts growling and attacks. And everyone sees it then. So you can't debate what the Empire is all about when their evil is on full display and everyone sees it. That's how the star system slipped through the fingers, is just the revelation of the truth. And at first the Empire, people brought this up last week when I said, how come Luthen wasn't like glued to the TV set waiting for news about this heist? He knew it was supposed to happen. Why did he have to wait for some random customer in his shop to bring it up to him? And somebody responded and said, well, the Empire, they stifled all information and they did not present the truth to people. But at this point in time, I think they're doing the exact opposite. I think they're using this as an opportunity to say, look at what these terrorists are doing. Look at what they're stealing from the government. They're stealing from you. You know, that's how they kind of would present it. So I think they would broadcast that everywhere. And that's exactly what Luthen wants to have happen is the more that people learn about the resistance against the Empire will force the Empire to show their cards, and everyone will see it, because the Empire will think they're broadcasting about terrorists, but they're actually broadcasting about their own oppressive ways.
Yeah.
I think that's what it'll come down to.
Yeah. No, I totally agree. Thanks very much, Charles, for the call. Appreciate it, buddy. And thanks for your Patreon support. This quote I love. This is one that Mon Mothma says to Tay. She says that she learned from Palpatine. And paraphrasing slightly here, she said, I keep the stone in my hand so they don't see the knife I have to their throat. So she acts, she says, I'm an irritation. I'm the bleeding heart in the Senate. I'm the one that's always championing the underdog, and I'm a distraction. I do that. She's hiding in plain sight, in a sense. She's the last one they would suspect, because they think they know everything about her, and they're spying on her. What does it tell them? Yep, she's a bleeding heart. She's a sucker for an underdog's cause. She would not be a suspect. In her mind, she would not be a suspect for being a rebellion leader. And I thought that was awesome.
However, she does say to take Kolma, her friend from Chandrilla, who's a banker, that she's having trouble accessing her funds. Before it was fine, but now it appears she's under some sort of scrutiny where they're watching how much she's withdrawing from the family fortune. So she requires this guy to bring her the cash directly now, because there are too many eyeballs on her. So there must be some suspicion about Mon.
There is, but probably not to the level of her being some sort of rebel leader,
revolutionary.
Yeah. I think it's more run of the mill or everyday kind of scrutiny, and not this high level stuff that they're now all of a sudden. Now, where does it go from here? Could she potentially show up on that list? Maybe, but her cover is that she's just, as I said, a bleeding heart, a sucker for a underdog cause. Just an irritation is the word that she uses. And let's see. We got first time caller and a Patreon supporter. We got Marty from Georgia. Hello, Marty. Thanks for hanging with us.
Hey, how you guys doing?
Doing great. Chut, my friend.
Hey, chut. Just want to first of all express gratitude. Y'all's podcast is amazing. I listen to it a lot on the way to work, and I get a lot of good insight news from you guys. So thank you guys for all you do.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Very kind.
I just want to express I had a lot of just like jumping out of my seat moments in this episode.
Yeah.
I think the first one was I watched this with a buddy of mine who's a Star Wars fan, but like not quite the level I am. When I saw Yularen's name pop up on the subtitle, I just jumped up, because I grew up a Clone Wars fan. Like, I remember being a kid watching the Clone Wars in 2008 for the first time ever, and seeing Yularen, and then seeing the clone troopers, even though they were about to, shoot that guy in the flashback, and then just seeing the K2 units, and the aliens. This episode just was so exciting, and from beginning to end, I was just hooked. And so it was all just so awesome to watch in this episode.
Well, I love the perspective that you're bringing as a Clone Wars era fan. And when I say that, I know you love all of Star Wars, but it was the Clone Wars that sucked you in. You had that big moment, that big Star Wars moment at that time in your life. You know, it's different for all of us. For me, it was Return of the Jedi in 83. For Mac, it was the original A New Hope in 77. But for you to swing back around, and it just, by the way, it makes me feel really old when you start saying, like, I remember watching Clone Wars as a kid. It's just crazy. It's wild to me. But no, I love the fact that you've swung back around and you're finding a lot to love in the Andor series. And you're right, there are tons of great moments. And in the K2, the K2, I got so excited. This is it. This is what it was all a ruse. We're going to see him in episode 7 here, but it wasn't the case. But Marty, thanks for the kind words at the top, and thanks for being a Patreon supporter. Appreciate the support. And
he said, "Hang." He said, "Hang."
I just was like, it was like Frankenstein. Fire. Let's see. Did we get that? I want to make sure we get that. Oh, Tom, I wanted to put Tom's comment up here. He said he checked a replay in Andor's briefcase with his guns, credits, and the manifesto. And the manifesto was put on top of the shower. So after jailbreak, he's going to have to go back to get those things. I don't think we got a name of that girl he was with. I think she was just random girl. You know, he's got him on all these different planets. He's a ladies' man. I think that's clear about old Cassian / Clem / Keef.
And he has a taste for the Pizzos, especially the greeny green ones.
I wanted to write all those down. Yeah,
my
I got
favorite as well.
The Revnog. I did get that one.
Yeah, good old Revnog.
By the way, were those probe droids that were flying overhead there, or some version of a probe droid?
Right.
Yeah.
They were some version. Yeah, some variant of the probe droid. Always good to see another reinforcement that we're in the Star Wars universe and not some random HBO drama.
Here's classic donut. Is this Baby Belushi?
No.
Oh, it's
Baby
not.
Belushi is Fart Party.
Oh, I thought he was Classic Donut. All right. Sorry about the misattribution there, Classic Donut. Mothma is kind of hot in this episode. Ha ha. Very seductive. Never thought I'd say that about Mon Mothma. Ha ha. Kidding aside. More Mothma. No, she is. There is a seductive quality to her. Yeah. She's very attractive. Genevieve O'Reilly doing a great job. She lights up the screen when she comes on it. And yeah, she was just looking fantastic. Regal, elegant, sexy, all of that. Yeah, it works. It really works. And I'm enjoying her on the screen and enjoying learning more about her character for sure. So yeah.
Yeah.
Big fan.
Great to see expansion of an original trilogy character happening in Andor. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, come a long way from Moon Mother, I'll tell you that.
Yeah, and I guess Palpatine is getting a little expansion of his character too, even though we just hear secondhand mentions of him, little drips and drabs here and there. It's still interesting to hear about just what the typical politician thinks about scarred and deformed Palpatine. I mean, does he generate some sense of sympathy from the public for being the one to stand up against the bad Jedi who attacked him and survived? Yeah, that probably did a lot for his street cred.
Let's see. You've got Brian from Virginia, Patreon supporter. Thank you, Brian. Whoa. Hello, Brian.
What's up, fellas?
Hey, Chut.
Hello, fellas. How y'all doing?
Doing great.
Good.
Chut back at you. Hey, I was just thinking here, watching the episode, last night, that as public as they've made this, it's on the Hollow News, it's on the Star Wars ham radio in Luthen's shack, and how do they keep this embarrassment, this big black eye? How do they not have Vader? We're kind of conditioned to this would be something that he would squash quick. And, this is kind of not that series. I just think it's interesting that, what we would usually think would happen, wouldn't happen, or how do they get around it type thing.
Well, now,
If I can, I mean, I have some thoughts on that.
Please go for it.
As I said before, the broadcasting of it isn't done to make the Empire look bad. It's being done to make the rebels look bad and frame them as terrorists, frame them as criminals, and hope that it eventually smokes them out. And so that's why
do you think that I'm sorry.
No, do I what? Do I think that what?
I was going to say, do you think that was what Marva meant when she said that's what the droid was doing with the newscast? Because like when they said it, I was like, does she mean he was able to glean the truth type thing, you know?
Marva, you mean not Marva, but Cyril's mom, right? Is that who you're talking about?
No, I was talking about Marva, you know, when she was
I don't recall
Cassian
Marva
about
hearing
the
a broadcast of it. Was she
she said something about the droid was able to
B2 played it for her.
Mess with the news.
Yeah,
he did something to the newscast, which I thought was weird. I guess he was able to like get the truth or parse the truth out of what, you know, BS they were putting over the waves, maybe.
Or maybe they plugged an Amazon Fire Stick into his USB. I mean, there's. You think he has that?
That is probably it. That is probably it.
But now, as far as like bringing out a big gun like Vader, it's difficult for them right now because it seems like all of these raids and thefts and heists, they're happening in certain pockets all over Imperial space. I think they're just trying to figure out if these guys are all working together. That's what Deidre's trying to do. If this is some sort of coordinated effort, an organized attack on the Empire, which is what she believes. But I don't think anybody else in the Empire feels that way. So nobody's calling Darth Vader yet. It's not until they become really obsessed with destroying this organized empire that has declared civil war against or organized rebellion that has declared civil war against the Empire, then
and also, you know,
Vader's attention.
Right. And we don't know for sure, but we do know during the events of the Kenobi series that Vader is distracted with his Inquisitors hunting down Jedi. He's on that quest. He's not going to be pulled in
to fry.
Yeah, he's not going to be pulled in for a robbery. You know, even if it is large scale. But as Mac points out, when it starts to portend something even larger, where this is a credible threat to the Empire, then he gets called in, and it's really, I mean, when we see him, you know, in hot pursuit of Leia and the Tantive 4 at the end of Rogue One and going into obviously to A New Hope. You know, it doesn't seem that he's, you know, the guy that's out there hunting Jedi or Force users anymore. He's been pulled in. He's part of the bureaucracy now. You know, he's in those meetings with these goobers like Ozzel and or excuse me, not Ozzel, with Mahdi and Yularen and Tarkin and so it's and he'll take any occasion to exert his force powers, you know, just to remind people of what they're dealing with. So, yeah. Hey, thanks, man. Appreciate it. Thanks for the call. Thanks for being a supporter of us on Patreon. We got one more call we're going to take from McHenry, Illinois. McHenry, Illinois. We got Brad on the line. Hello, Brad.
Hey, fellas. Chut.
Hey, Brad.
Chut.
Hey, I just want to give a quick shout out to Tyler. He is from McHenry, so I just want to say thanks for
Tyler is from McHenry?
Awesome.
Tyler,
Yeah.
Okay. Did you guys go to high school together or something?
Well, no, unfortunately, I'm much older than him, apparently, so
all right.
We did not meet, no. I just got to say, I love this show. It is killing it. I think everybody who's saying it's too slow or something, I hope they're done, because this show is really showing just how suspenseful having a simple conversation can be. And it's awesome. I mean, it just draws you in with every breath and word that, I mean, especially with Mon Mothma and her banker friend, that scene was just like riveting, I thought.
Yeah.
So good.
Yeah, you're hanging on every word. At least that's how I felt in this episode. I was hanging on every word.
Yeah.
Similar, you know, it's similar to go on what you're saying. Similar vibes to the conversation held between Richard Brake and Bill Burr in that season 2 episode of The Mandalorian.
Totally.
It's another example in Star Wars where you really have that sort of intrigue building, and we're getting it in spades with Andor.
For sure.
And that also kind of parallels with Deidre with her Imperial comrades, because like, I mean, she can be seen, and I think this is really interesting, and I'm excited to see where it goes, because like, she's almost a rebel within the Empire, just trying to catch the rebels. So like, she's going against the Empire in order, you know, to fulfill the Empire. And I think that's really interesting.
No, you're
so that's awesome.
No, I think you're right. Yeah, she's definitely a rebel within the Empire, and it's taking a rebel within the Empire to give them the intelligence that they need to see the bigger picture of what's going on. It's really Brad, thanks very much for the call. It's fascinating because, you know, with Cassian, it's like, so Cassian goes and aids the rebels in their biggest, at that time, their biggest maneuver so far. And what does he do it for? He does it for money. He does it for family, for friends. He wants to be able to come back, take his mom, take Bix, go far away, live on a beach somewhere. And the irony of, in Marva's case, saying, no, I'm going to stay. I'm so inspired, you know, unknowing that that Cassian had a hand in this. She's so inspired by his actions, not knowing they were his actions, that's what gets her to want to stay and stand her ground. And it is just brilliant storytelling and writing, that it's literally his actions that he's doing in order to find a way to save Marva from, you know, Ferrix. It's those actions that causes her to want to stay. Same with Bix. And then, of course, you know, our last caller juxtaposed that with Deidre and how she's being a rebel within a very uniform. They even have, what's that organization that Cyril goes to work for? It is the Department of
the Bureau of Standards.
Bureau of Standards.
Yeah,
where everything has to be.
Cyril's in the fuel purity department of the Bureau of Standards.
Oh my God, that's what old Uncle what's his name was able to. That's what he was able to pull off. He got him a gig at the Bureau of Standards. Well, that's true. That is true.
You know,
especially
it's in a cubicle
Empire.
farm, yeah, but I mean, it's still a gig.
Yeah.
Poor Cyril. Poor Cyril.
Oh, and he looked at that cube like it's his prison sentence. You know?
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah, he's like poor Luke stuck on Tatooine.
Yes.
You know, he wants to go where the action is. Cyril is in the one place in the galaxy it's farthest from. Biggs! He'll be yelling in the next episode. But he'll be saying Bix! Not big. Whatever.
Bix.
Okay. I had too many pizzos before the show, clearly. Too many pizzos and too much of the embassy punch. Delicious. Delicious, nutritious, good for you.
Oh, man. What a good time here on the After Show. There's so much in this episode, like the line that, I love the line that Marva gives. She says, "You can't stay and I can't go." And Cassian just cannot understand this. He tells her, "I don't get it. I don't understand." But he'll learn. He says, "I'm coming back." That's another thing that he says to Marva on his way out.
Right.
I'm coming back.
She says, "I know."
Lots of fun. Great conversation. Thank you to all of our callers this week. And a big thanks to Tyler, our call screener. Tyler, we couldn't do it without you, brother. Thank you very much for being here each and every week. And anything that we or our callers did not get to?
I don't know about that, but I do know that this episode was a turning point for me, and I really started to enjoy it, Andor, a lot more. I liked the guy falling asleep at the desk, like the stormtroopers, mouse droid.
The guy falling asleep. I forgot about the guy falling asleep.
But, I also don't think Andor is going to make it to jail. I think he's going to have his own "you are being rescued" moment. So, yeah, I'm just throwing that out there. Yeah, we got to see Saw at some point, too. I think he's going to be involved with Luthen from the trailer. So, maybe there's some ties there. I'm way more excited than I was before this episode for the rest of the show. So
awesome. All right, dude. Thanks as always. Appreciate you being here.
Thanks,
and I think we'll see you here next week, maybe twice.
Yeah.
We'll see how it goes. Jimmy Mack, final thoughts. Episode 7 announcement.
Announcement, Jason. I love this episode. This one really gave me a lot of the Star Wars feels that I think are essential. But I just keep replaying that arrest of Cassian at the end of the episode and then his eventual court date and everything. It really just goes to show you that the Empire can come down on you pretty hard if you're just walking down the street, And they thought he was looking suspicious. It had me wondering when that shore trooper, was talking to Cassian. I was wondering if his helmet tech was able to read any sort of different changes in Cassian's
like his body
nervous
temperature
system or something.
Pulse rate or something.
Pulse rate, all that stuff. Yeah, I was thinking there must be some tech in his helmet that really amplifies his suspicions about Cassian. And it's like, wow, that's pretty intense. David Frizzell the third says he's speculating Cyril might become a bounty hunter eventually, because in the show we have Cassian, who represents the rebellion. We have the story of Deidre, who represents the Empire, and somebody should be representing the underworld or the bounty hunters, and maybe Cyril will become a bounty hunter. That's some interesting speculation there. I don't think so. I think Cyril he's a company man all the way, and he'll find his way to get back on his feet in more of an officious kind of way, find himself in a position of some power. I always enjoy going back to Luthen's shop. Number one, just to see Luthen turn on the charm like no one this side of Billy D. Williams has done in Star Wars.
Does he ever?
But this time around, I really found myself looking in the background to try to spot all those Easter eggs that everyone seems to catch. I couldn't recognize anything. There was something that was sitting on his desk that looked something like a crab. And to me, it looked sort of like that walkie chair that the Nemoidians had that was projecting the Palpatine Darth Sidious hologram in episode 1, that walking chair.
Yeah.
And it looked like it was a miniature version of that, kind of twisted around. Maybe, I don't know. But I did notice one of these, a Gungan
the shield.
Yeah. Did you catch that?
No, but it was in a previous episode that somebody
I
pointed
didn't
out.
catch it until this time around.
Yeah, it was in a previous episode.
The shield. And then everyone points to the Star Killer helmet there. It's a Star Killer helmet with spikes on top from the old Force Unleashed video game for when Star Killer becomes a Dark Lord. But that's all I've been able to spot. I think there's a Calicori back there too. Remember that trinket that Hera had that represented her family history and lineage and all of that stuff. And the Empire had it, and she had to steal it back in an episode of Rebels.
Oh,
You don't remember that,
because
do you?
you
You do?
Thrawn
You
is-
remember that?
I do.
I think they sell those things at Galaxy's Edge now. I'm not sure, but I think they do.
Of course they do. Thrawn was quite the that's how he learned about his enemies, was through their culture and their artifacts and their art and all of that stuff.
Now, was Cyril ever on screen with some sort of stormtrooper action figures in this episode? I've heard people bring that up,
Really?
and I didn't catch it on my second rewatch. But somebody just said in the chat, Jimmy, you didn't say anything about the action figures. I think that's what they might be talking about. I'm a little in the fog about that stuff.
No, I didn't see him
Dean
playing
says
with
there's
his
a Jedi Temple guard mask spotted in Luthen's shop. All right, so I didn't see that in Luthen's shop. I also didn't see Borg Gullet in this episode because Borg Gullet not in this episode. That's all I got to say about Andor.
right.
What a great episode this was. I really enjoyed it.
Tons of fun, and it's even more enjoyable when we get to hang out with our friends. All of you, thank you so much being here each and every week and listening to the podcast. We do love you all very, very much. You make this experience so much better for us as well. So we'll see you next week, as I tease here, maybe twice. Check it out, what's going on in Disney Plus. We'll have more details on the weekly show, Rebel Force Radio. Check it out, rebelforceradio.com. And you can find us on all of the podcatchers, Rebel Force Radio. We'll see you next week. Thanks again. Until next time, for Rebel Force Radio, I'm Jason.
I'm Jimmy Mack.
And remember,
Always.
let's try that one more time. Let's get a real one in here.
The Force will be with you.
There we go.
Always.
All right, we're out of here.